everyone, and welcome to GRUFFtalk, where each week we take a deep dive into all the ways we can feel better, look better, live better, and age better. I'm your host, Barbara Hannah Grufferman. One of the best gifts you'll ever give yourself is to make the choice to move more. Moving more, along with eating well, managing stress, and making sleep a priority, will definitely help you to age better, which is the goal, right? And isn't that the point of this podcast and what we talk about every week? Yes. Okay, then. So today's guest is going to talk us through a unique way of moving, which he believes will keep you moving for the rest of your life. And he's created a believer in me, so much so that I'm going to use his program starting tomorrow. Yep, tomorrow. Stay tuned on how that goes. Danny Dreyer is the founder of ChiRunning and ChiWalking, an approach to running and walking based on the movement principles of Tai Chi. He and his wife, Katherine, have written a few really great books on mindful movement. And the first book, ChiRunning, is now printed in 15 languages and taught by over 200 certified instructors in 23 countries. This is incredibly popular. Danny's work is based on his 25-year study of Tai Chi and 50 years of running and racing every distance from a 5K to 100 miles, including 43 ultra marathons. At age 73, he has now run over 100,000 miles and is still running half marathons. I want to be able to do that too. That's exactly what I want to do. He is my mentor and role model. As Danny explained it to me during our conversation, ChiRunning and also ChiWalking, it elevates running beyond a sport or a fitness program. You have to kind of think about it differently, turning it into a mindful practice, kind of like yoga or Pilates or Tai Chi, allowing your whole body and mind to participate in the movement. Danny said, with this program, you can learn to become faster and go longer distances with less effort, less recovery, and fewer injuries by focusing your mind, relaxing your body, and actually doing less. Doing less. Sounds good. So listen, everyone, even if you're not a runner, all know I love to run, but even if you're not a runner, you will absolutely enjoy this conversation, and you will learn a great deal about the connection between your body and mind and how you can bring them together to keep on moving. Right after this, we'll start the show. Stay tuned. Hi, Danny, and welcome to GRUFFtalk.
Hi, Barbara.
So you know already, because we had a little chit chat before we started recording this episode, that I love to run. In fact, I just recently ran in the New York City Marathon, which was my 15th marathon. All since turning 50, I'm really proud to report.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But I'm always looking for new ideas about running, new ways to do it, especially as I get older. I want to be even more careful about how I run. So I'm really intrigued by your program, ChiRunning, which you started with your wife. And I am very interested in learning more about it because even though not all of my listeners are runners, I think a lot of them are, and a lot of them are very interested in maybe starting a running program. So let's go right to it. What is ChiRunning exactly? What is it?
ChiRunning is something that I came up with about 22 years ago at this point. And it's a mixture of what I learned from my 25 years of practice with Tai Chi. And I've been a runner forever. I've probably been running for 50 years.
Wow.
And so when I started combining the two, the beauty of it is that Tai Chi brings to the table a way to turn your body, your relationship to your body, into an internal practice, because you're always learning to listen to your body, and everything in Tai Chi moves from your center. So if you've seen a martial artist, they move from their center. That completely rocked my boat when I started applying that single little principle to my running. So instead of running with my legs, I no longer run with my legs. I run from my center using it for propulsion, and we can get into that a little later if you'd like. But it's really taking all the work of propulsion away from your body and positioning your body and your alignment and everything else in a way such that the pull of gravity creates more of your propulsion. So if you can learn to cooperate with the pull of gravity, and it's there all day and most of the night, and so you can really take advantage of this huge force of nature, instead of having to push yourself around a marathon course for 26 miles or 4 hours or whatever you want to do. There's an easier way to do it.
There's an easier way to do it. So in other words, you don't think as much about your legs. You're thinking more about your core. So
the position of my core relative to where my feet hit the ground. Now, that's a real specific little thing.
Now, I know this is, as you know, this is an audio podcast. So
yeah.
Can you explain this to us a little bit more with more detail without showing us? I got to understand this more. Explain.
So how most people run, 90% of the people in the world run, is they push with one leg and they land with their other leg, right? When you push off with one leg, you're pushing against the pull of gravity, right? So you're fighting gravity. You're pushing against gravity to push your body forward. Well, then in order to land, you have to stick your leg out in front of you and land, right? So your body has a certain amount of momentum. So every time you land, the oncoming road hits your foot, right? And it sends a force up your leg.
Yes.
So if you can imagine, your propulsion comes from the leg you're pushing with, but every time you land, you're stopping your forward momentum because your foot is out in front of you. It's like putting the brakes on. And you can feel that. You can definitely feel that when you're running. So with ChiRunning, the position of your feet is very important. So what I have people do, instead of pushing yourself forward, you simply fall forward. You fall forward. There's a certain, you keep your body aligned. You have really good posture. You keep your body aligned, and you allow your whole body just to tilt forward. And gravity will engage it. It's just like a tree falling over, right? If a tree falls, gravity is going to pull it on down.
Well, I have to say, Danny, you do make this sound much easier than what I feel I've been doing for the last 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's
do you
easier than people make it.
I want to understand the actual position of the body. So do you bend anywhere? Are you bending from your hips? Are you the waist?
You
or
don't
there's no
bend
bending?
from your hips. No bending at the hips or the waist or anything. The only place that you bend or flex is at your ankles. So that's different than most people do. So what I do is Tai Chi and everything is really all geared around really good posture. So that's body alignment. That's, from head to toe, body alignment. So every time you land, take a step, move, anything you do, those, your shoulders, hips, and ankles should be in a straight line every time you're in contact with the ground. Straight line. But it doesn't mean that straight line can't be tilted forward. As long as the line is still straight, you can tilt it forward. It's just like a falling tree. So if your body line is tilted forward but not bent anywhere, that means your center of mass is in front of your feet at some point, right? Because it's like grabbing a broom, right? If you grab a broom and you stand on the bristles and you lean the broom over, it's still straight. But if your hand is right in the middle of the broom, its center of mass, your hand is in front of where you're standing on the bristles. And if you let go of the broom, it's going to fall over or fall forward.
How do people, this does sound like a practice. Whenever I've used or referred to Tai Chi, I've always said it's a practice.
Absolutely.
And this sounds like a practice also. As you did say, this is just like an extension of your practice of Tai Chi. You've brought it to running and also to walking, which we'll get to just a little bit later. So how can a person practice this? Are there certain exercises that one must do in order to get to that proper form and posture and practice?
Yeah, there's a chronology of the practice parts of the pieces of the whole practice. And the first thing is posture. So I would suggest, people really practice on having really good tall posture so that you're
Something
not
that we should be
slumped.
doing no matter what.
Something you should be doing anyway. And if you're not sure what true posture, good posture is, stand looking sideways into a mirror, and your shoulders, hip bone, and ankle should line up. Okay, now your hip bone, I mean your greater trochanter, where your hip actually is, not your waist. It's your hip. Shoulders, hips, and ankles should be in a straight line. Then I would have them really practice that straight line. And in order to hold that line straight while you're running, you need to lift at the crown of your head. You've heard it a million times in yoga class, right?
And Pilates.
Same thing. Mm-hmm. Pilates, yoga, anything you do where you're doing a motion where you want to stay aligned, if you lift at the crown of your head, it does a number of things. It engages your core muscles. It opens up your chest so you can breathe more. And it allows those core muscles to keep your body line straight as you slightly tip over forward. Okay. So that's the first thing. Is really good posture and holding that posture. Because if you lose it, if you bend at the waist because your abs aren't strong or your core isn't strong, if you bend at the waist, it doesn't work. The whole
you're
technique,
off. The whole thing is off. Mm-hmm.
Everything. So it's really important to start there. It's just like in Tai Chi. If I'm learning how to turn or throw a punch or anything, I have to move from my center. And I also have to always be aligned from my center.
But to keep a strong core in order to practice ChiRunning, do you recommend that people do strength training specific to their cores? Oh, no. So you're shaking your head
Not
no.
necessarily. Not necessarily.
I want everyone to know that you just shook your head no.
Because I want people to realize that this is not a muscular event. Now, this is where I really part ways with most runners, is they think it's a strength event. You got to be strong to be a runner. You got to have strong core. You got to have good quads. You have great calves to push yourself forward. All of the muscle stuff. Okay. So I've taken the muscles out of the equation. The only muscles that are still in the equation are the core muscles around the central part of your body. Okay. The reason why, as it ends up, is because running has about a 65% injury rate with everybody. 65, 2 out of 3 people every year get injured enough that stops their running program.
That's right.
Well, if you want to keep from getting injured, there's 2 things that create injuries. One is impact, and one is overexertion.
Yeah.
So impact is when your whole body is hitting the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So that's impact it's an injury to the joints. So if you have bad joints and bad back and all that stuff, if you land hard, it's going to exacerbate bone injuries, joint injuries. On the other hand, if you're overexerting, that's going to injure the soft tissue.
Can you define overexerting? I mean, to me, with running, I would say that overexerting is because, let's say you're training for something, you add on too much mileage too quickly.
There's a number of different ways to overexert. Now, overexertion is demanding more from your body than it is currently capable of offering. That's a good definition to remember.
That's a good one.
How many of us have asked more from our body than it was really ready to do? That's why you want to gradually build up in any training program.
Well, I read in your book, which I love, ChiRunning. And by the way, where you have wonderful images of showing proper posture and how to stand and everything. So everyone, if you want to actually see what Danny is talking about, his book really has some great images there. But I also read that your first, I want to make sure I'm right here, your first race was a 50-miler.
Yeah,
and you trained for, this was when you had decided to embrace Tai Chi in this way and make, extend to ChiRunning, that you trained for 3.5 years.
Yeah, I did.
That sounds smart to me.
So that was a long period of time, right? So I took it very slowly because
this requires patience.
Patience, and I wasn't 45 years old until I did this. I didn't even start racing till after I was 45, and the reason why I did 50 miles is because I wanted to finish well in my age group.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm 45. So I started looking up the distances and the records.
Yes.
Okay. So for a marathon, forget about it. 45-year-olds are running 2.5-hour marathons, And so I kept getting a longer and longer distance and slower times.
Yeah.
Because the longer you go, the slower the time is. Until I finally got to 50 miles, and the record was like 8-minute pace.
Incredible.
Per mile for a 50-mile race. And I thought, well, I can run an 8-minute pace. At that point, I was running 10 miles, and I said, I can do 10 8-minute miles. So I'm just going to train, and every time I add a mile, it's going to be another 8-minute mile. Well, it took me 3.5 years to add 58-minute miles.
That's incredible. That's really incredible. Yeah. Well done, Danny.
And so my first 50-miler, I finished in 6.5 hours.
Very impressive. Very impressive. So I do actually have a question about this. So I understand that this takes patience, that you need to build up to it. And then actually this is a question, Danny, even if you've been running, like I've been running for 15 years, started at 50, here I am. And I'm very intrigued by this and I want to try it out. I'm telling you now, I'm going to have you come back on so I can report to you how I'm doing. And,
that'd be great.
Oh, for sure. We're going to do that. And I have to be patient with this. And I'm going to reread your books, make sure I know exactly what I'm doing. But is this something that can be applied to training for a marathon? Or do you think this is really something better equipped for shorter distances or just, kind of just your everyday running? Or tell us about that. Who is this for? Everybody?
It's actually for everybody. The only people I would say it's maybe not as good for are sprinters.
That makes sense.
Because when you get into sprinting, you have to start using muscle. And my whole thing is not using muscle. So once you get into superhuman speeds, like the speed that you don't normally have to do, you have to use muscle.
And where you're not going to sustain that speed, where, like you said, a sprinter,
exactly.
It's a quick in and out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all short twitch stuff. And I don't teach that.
Got it.
I teach the long haul. So regardless of your skill or ability, anything from a 5K on up to 100 miles or however far you want to run. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but it's interesting you ask, well, is this good for anybody? Well, it is especially good for people who have already been running for years even, because with almost without exception, I can watch a person who's been a runner for many years actually improve their speed, their distance, and shorten their recovery time with not very much work in the area of building muscles.
That really is incredible. And you do say in your book and on your really terrific website that this is also a way to run for the long haul, injury-free.
Yeah, absolutely injury-free. Because remember what I said, the two ways to injure yourself are impact and overuse, right? Okay, so if you knock out the impact, then there's no impact injuries, right? If you run smoothly along the ground and you don't create any impact. So none of that braking motion that I was talking about, of sticking your foot out in front of you and hitting the ground hard. And if you also knock out any overuse, which really means that you take your legs out of the equation.
Interesting.
So if you're not using your legs to run except for momentary support between strides, what's not to like about that? And how could you possibly get injured unless you fall in a pothole or something like that? So if you really take away those two reasons for injuries, there is no reason to get injured.
It must be hard. I'm trying to really picture myself now. Have you found that it's difficult or challenging for people who have been running in a certain way, maybe, doing really well in the way that they have been running, and then they want to kind of move in this direction? It's a whole different zen. To remove your legs from the equation is like I'm trying to imagine this. And I am going to imagine. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to. And the question too is, how will they know if they're doing it correctly? Like, what do you offer? Are there local classes that people can go to? Like, how can we do this?
Yeah, old habits die hard. So, when I take a runner who's been a runner for a long time, it does take them sometimes longer to undo all those neurotransmitters they've been working with,
right.
Their whole running career. But it's not out of the question to do. And how you can tell when you are doing it, people ask me all the time, how can you tell when you're doing ChiRunning?
Yeah.
And I go, well,
it's a valid question.
It's a good question. And so how I answer it is like, well, it's not so much what I feel when I'm doing ChiRunning, it's what I don't feel when I'm ChiRunning. I don't feel impact. I don't feel my legs getting tired. I don't feel myself short of breath. I don't feel myself, dogging it at the end of a run. It's what I don't feel. And so
A
when
question
all
for
of
you,
that
Danny,
stuff is going on,
does this have anything to do with speed? It doesn't sound like it
No.
does.
Speed is optional.
Is optional. That's what it sounds
Totally
like
optional.
to me, but I just want to be really clear about that.
Yeah, well, the reason why is speed is optional. So if you have somebody who's just a beginning runner, they just want to run slow, they use the exact same principles to grow their running practice as somebody who's an elite athlete that wants to just get more efficient and faster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it doesn't matter. The same principles apply to every single person along the way. So every person, no matter who they are, has to have a really good posture. Every person, if they want to run faster than they are right now, needs to relax their body more. It's not about building stronger muscles, it's about relaxing more. And that's the hardest part to teach anybody.
Sure. Talk to us about breathing. I know that breathing is a very important aspect of ChiRunning. Am I right?
Yeah, it's totally important. And the thing is that if you're less efficient of a runner, you will breathe harder. Okay. But you can also work with your breath. And I've been following a guy, Patrick McEwen, who has, you should interview him. He's awesome. He does a whole breathing system that was invented by some Russian guy. But I can turn you on to that later.
No, I'd love to learn more about that. Thank you.
It's really important to breathe through your nose when you're running. Breathe through your nose. And I breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth.
That's what I do.
It's really cyclical breathing like that, okay? The reason for that is to take really deep breaths down into your belly. So you have to be belly breathing. If you're not, all of that oxygen that's coming into your lungs isn't getting down into the bottom of your lungs where all the alveoli, all those little things that absorb the oxygen out of the air, most of them reside in the bottom 2/3 of your lungs. But if you breathe in through your mouth, a mouth breather, you're huffing and puffing, but you're only breathing into your chest. You're not breathing into your belly. And so if you only breathe in through your chest, you don't get nearly as much oxygen out of every breath. Plus, when you breathe in through your chest, your sympathetic nervous system thinks you're in an emergency and starts pumping all the wrong hormones through your system. On the other hand, if you nose breathe, belly breathe, it sets up the parasympathetic nervous system, which is relaxing, maintaining, long, slow. So the breathing is really important because if you're breathing through your mouth, you're going to wear yourself out really quickly because your body thinks it's fight or flight.
Right.
And if you breathe through your nose, it's really going to be longer lasting, just kind of, mellow, cruising along. And it sets up your whole nervous system and your fuel to burn differently. Everything affects everything in your body.
Yeah, so breathing is critical. So now,
one is getting your body to move correctly. The other is combining good movement with good breath.
Yes.
And all of that is combined with a whole holistic way of learning how to relax your whole body while you're moving, because that makes everything go easier.
So I have a question about that, the relaxing your whole body. So maybe I'm just not getting something, but relaxing your whole body sounds really nice and very Zenish, which I love. I mean, I love the whole concept of meditative running. I feel like that is my form of meditation in many, many ways. But then I could imagine, and I must be wrong here, if I'm embracing ChiRunning and practicing ChiRunning, don't I have to kind of keep my core tense to do it properly?
I wouldn't say tense, but you do have to engage your core.
Engage your core.
So here's one thing. So when you stand up tall and I invite your listeners to just totally stand up while they're listening
I'm
to the
doing that
podcast.
right now. I'm sitting taller.
Lift through the crown of your head, and you could feel how it connects this whole internal axis straight through your body, head to toe, right? That's your alignment. That is what always needs to maintain the same. Whether you're running fast, slow, whatever you're doing, whenever you're running, need to have that going. But everything outside of that, all the moving parts, arms, shoulders, hips, legs, all the moving parts need to be as relaxed as possible. The only time all of this is engaged is mostly as soon as you touch the ground, as soon as you come into a support phase where you land and your body is momentarily supported by that I-beam right down the middle of your body. That's the only time you engage muscles. As soon as you leave the ground, everything that needs to move needs to be absolutely loose and fluid and no tension. So two things happen. So, Tai Chi is based on the the Taoist principles of yin and yang.
Yes.
Yin is the gathering. It's this center line. Yang is the expansiveness. That's the looseness of your muscles and soft tissue. So the yin is your bones and ligaments. Yang is your muscles. Okay. And so they don't happen at different times. They have to always be happening all together at the same. They're two sides of the same coin. So yin and yang have to exist together. So you need this support, but you also need the looseness around that support.
Thank you. I know that really did explain that.
Yeah.
Very, very well. And I appreciate that. I started running, as I mentioned, when I turned 50 for a lot of reasons. And I used and continue to use the program that Jeff Galloway created, Run Walk.
Yeah.
What are your feelings about that? Are they complementary? Are ChiRunning and Run Walk Run programs complementary? Or do you need to really give up one to do the other?
You don't need to give up one to do the other, but what you do need to do is, whether you're walking or running, either do ChiWalking or ChiRunning. The difference is, when I was first starting off my whole ChiRunning, ChiWalking program, I used to coach for the team and training programs. And there was even a bunch of Galloway groups that I coached. Okay, so they'd be going along, and after 3 minutes, everybody said break, and everybody would slump down into like the worst posture, a really sloppy kind of stroll along the ground, and everything totally fell apart, right? For however long until you recover, and then you go back on, and here you are running again. And then it would go all apart again. And even their running wasn't that together when they were running.
Yeah.
So then you've got to deal with, every time you start from scratch, from a walk into a run, you have to accelerate. That takes a certain amount of energy. Right. You get a certain amount of rest because you're walking every 3 minutes or whatever it is. But I would suggest, if somebody's going to do a run walk, technique is absolutely bottom line in my case.
Yes, I agree completely with everything you just said.
I've witnessed some,
you used words kind of sloppy and all over the place. I've witnessed a lot of that, and I'm very cognizant of that. I try my best when I'm going out of a run into a walk and then going back into a run, that it's more of a glide as I accelerate. And it's interesting. What I'm planning on doing is, actually, when I try your program, is I'm going to try it without running and walking. Starting with
the other thing is, on our website, we also offer a Chi Walk Run training program, to where you run but you don't do it by time. You do it by how you feel your body. You don't just automatically stop after 3 minutes or whatever.
Right.
You run until you feel like a need to take a break.
Yep.
And then you walk. But you walk really mindfully. You pay attention to the whole way that you're walking. Once you recover, then you go back into your run and you're ready to go, because you haven't dropped the mindfulness aspect of it while you walk. Okay?
Right.
And with the walk run, thing about Jeff Galloway's method is that it's, regimented. You do it regularly, regular intervals.
Correct.
But it doesn't train you to listen to your body. And that is also, bottom line, with me is you have to learn to listen to your body. So if I'm training, and I call it body sensing, if I'm training somebody to body sense and they want to do a walk run, no problem. I'll say, okay, so run until you feel tired, walk until you feel guilty. You should be starting to run again, but you're just walking.
Oh.
And so you're always, that makes you, just that phrase makes you listen to your body.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Now I can't.
Something else about the body, something about else listening to the body I want to just touch on that you talk about in your book, and something that I've been doing just on my own for as long as I can remember. When I wake up, and even some other times during the day, I will kind of just do a check-in with myself. Yeah. I'll do a check-in with my body. And as you say in your book, from head to toe, just have your, it's like you're almost walking inside your body and checking everything out. How's that feeling? How's that feeling? How's your knee? You know, I have a little arthritis on my knee. How's your knee feeling? How's your lower back? I have a little bit of a lower back issue. And it's so important. And then you can try to help those weaker parts of your body by doing this check-in, this body sensing. So I really, really appreciate that, and that you're a proponent of it. You know,
and I will say one thing in addition to that is that as you get better, now the ChiRunning and the ChiWalking are both totally divided into just little pieces, beginning to end. So here's all these parts. You have to watch your posture, how your arms swing, how your legs move, everything. There's all these pieces. Body sensing is being able to remember the correctness of how would I move if I were to do it more correctly. But the other thing that it does is once you learn all the parts to the technique, then if you're running along and all of a sudden you feel a pain in your knee, there's something you can do about it very specifically. You can change your stride length. You can change the rotation of your feet. You can get to the bottom of what's causing that pain, make the adjustment, pain goes away. Okay. So this whole idea of combining body sensing with various body focuses is the strongest mindful part of ChiRunning and ChiWalking. So when I'm running a really long event, I'll be checking in with my body all the time. Where am I tired? Where am I holding tension? If I'm holding tension in my shoulders, there's something I can do right then. Just drop my shoulders, really swing my arms a little bigger. So there's always an adjustment you can make if you feel any part of your form going downhill. Or if you're even tired, there's stuff you can do if you feel tired to make you not feel as tired. So it all comes back to really rectifying and correcting your body position and your movements so that you can always, it's like hitting the reset button. I tell people. It's like hitting a reset. So your legs get like a wobbly after 10 miles or something like that. Well, just get them back together, get them moving correctly, and all of a sudden all of that fatigue is gone or the knee pain is gone. So anyway, it's being able to communicate with your body both directions. You're listening to your body, and then you're also giving it directives to be able to do something better in the moment that'll help improve your immediate situation.
Right. And one thing that you haven't really come out and said, but it sounds to me as though this practice of ChiRunning is not about time. I know you can make it be about time. You can certainly speed up, but it sounds like you may tell people, especially those who are just starting to do it, to just, put time out of your mind right now. Yes. Is that true or not true?
That's absolutely true. In fact, anybody, who's building a program, just put time out of the equation and put listening to your body in the equation. So if you don't know how far you're supposed to run, just go until you start feeling a little fatigued. And by then you should be aiming yourself back home.
That's great. That's a really good advice. Really good advice.
Yeah, because it's all the answers.
It's very intuitive.
I don't have all the answers, but you're the one with the body cruising around, So if I can give you as many answers as possible and then send you off, then if I'm not around to answer questions, you can ask yourself your questions and then have the answers.
Yep. Every episode of GRUFFtalk really helps at least I hope, to give listeners a new way of looking at how to age better. I mean, that's what we talk about. And based on science and research, whenever I can, we know that moving more, we know this is critical to achieving that goal, right?
Yeah.
But not only practices like running and walking, but also strength training and balance and like Tai Chi. And how have you embraced other forms of movement to help you age better? Now, you, of course, you mentioned Tai Chi many times. I mean, that's really like the center for you.
Yeah.
But what else do you do? Anything you want to share with our audience?
Yeah. So I don't run every day, but I have 5 days a week.
Okay.
I do Tai Chi every day, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also do an upper body workout. So I live near a forest, and for whatever reason, in the middle of this forest, there's a whole ropes course where you can do chin-ups and pull-ups and, little ladders and all this right in the middle of the woods.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
It's incredible. So I go in there about 3 days a week and do an upper body workout. And I've also just joined a pool the last couple of weeks. And so I'm swimming now. And there's an indoor gym there too. So if it's cold out, I can do my upper body there.
Yeah.
But I know that, for men and women, the older you get, the less testosterone exists in your body. So it's hard to maintain muscle mass. That's why you age partially. That's what makes it harder to be active as you get older. So you have to be doing something to activate that.
Yeah,
so I do
every
swimming.
Day, swimming.
Yeah, every day. I do swimming maybe 5 days a week and running, like I said, 5 days a week. So those are the main things. And then the two other things that have really helped me, 3 things that have helped me age better is meditation. My meditation practice, I've probably been doing it for 60 years now. And then I do a really clean diet, mostly organic. I'm not a non-meat eater, but I eat very little, but I do eat fish. And so I eat well and good, healthy, fresh foods, nothing processed.
No, it sounds that way. And it's, when you clearly are using food to fuel all the different ways that you move your body, which is often.
Yeah. And so the one thing that happens with the meditation practice, and one of the things that I'm a huge proponent of, is learning, if you want to age well, you need to learn to relax well.
Yeah.
And if you're holding tension or chronically holding tension, it can really destroy your whole quality of life completely.
Yeah.
If you don't take care of it. And that's really, really important. So, good relaxation techniques, stretching, breathing helps relaxation.
Yeah. And sleep. We haven't mentioned that, but I'm assuming that you're saying all the right things. So I'm assuming that you've made sleep a priority for you as well.
I do make it a priority, but I only sleep about 5 or 6 hours a night. So it's a priority.
It's a priority.
But when I wake up, I'll body sense and I'll say, do I feel tired? Or do I not? And if I don't feel tired, it's like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. It's a very personal thing. And that is the direction I think all of this is heading, is that we're all individuals and we all have different needs.
Yeah.
There's some broad stroke generalizations, of course, like everything you just mentioned, moving your body, eating well, and getting enough sleep. And enough sleep really is a personal thing, but it sounds like, hey, Danny, it sounds like you're doing everything right. So this was incredibly inspiring. And as a runner who has signed up for 3 marathons for 2023.
That's ambitious. That's great.
And a bunch of other, little races, as I call them.
Sure.
I am planning to embrace ChiRunning into my training. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to be very mindful about it. And my goal is to be able to run for the rest of my life. And that really is my goal, injury-free. And I've never had a running injury. Anything that I have has just been, I think, more age-related, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I think that your program and approach to running, walking, and living will help me to do that. So before we end the show, before we end this conversation, please give GRUFFtalk listeners your 3 key takeaways that you want them to remember from our conversation today.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
The first one is the best way to age well is to make listening to your body the highest priority you have. If you don't listen to your body, you're clueless going into aging. And you really want to be on top of what's happening in my body. What's it telling me? Talk to it. And don't deny anything that's going on in it, because your body talks. It tells the truth. Get to know what it needs and doesn't need to do, and guide your decisions from that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's just careful listening. The second one is whatever you can do to relax your body physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, make a practice out of it. That's all 4 levels there. Mm-hmm. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. So take them one at a time or do them all, but you have to hit all 4. Yeah. And it's like topping off all 4. Mm-hmm. And along with that, the biggest way to having a great aging process is to really learn to let go, because that's what aging is all about, is letting go until the big letting go, right? Okay. And then the third one is also really important for people who are maybe late getting into this thing of staying healthy or getting healthy or whatever.
And we do like to always say it's never too late. Yeah.
Never, ever too. The human body is so plastic. So I mean that in a bad way. It can really change. Especially it's really the brain. Changeable. The brain can completely change. So number 3 is take it slowly and gradually. You're not in a hurry, to get healthy. Just be mindful and, don't try to get fit all at once, turn it into a lifestyle thing. I've been doing it for decades, but anybody at any time can turn it into decades. So the biggest goal with all of these 3 things is to improve your quality of life. And most people think as you get older that your quality of life heads south.
But I think you and I are really 2 walking, breathing, very good examples of how that's not true. Yeah. That's not true. As long as you take control of those things that you can control, like everything that you just said. Yeah. Everything that you just said.
So really. If you take things gradually, then you will really appreciate taking them gradually, and you'll like yourself because of it. So in the end, throughout the years or however long you tend to do this, you will end up being more pleased with yourself. You'll be a happier person because you made all these right choices along the way, because you listened to your body, and you just end up having a much more positive attitude about yourself. And so that third one is also really good.
They're all really good, Danny.
Thank you.
And promise me you're going to come back so I can give you a report on how I'm doing as I'm into my training. My first of the 3 marathons in 2023 isn't until June. And we're only in, almost December. Actually, December.
Well, that's plenty of time. That's really good. Yeah.
And I'll have plenty of time to get going. I know probably not as much time as you think I should take, but let's see what I can do.
I'm actually running a 30K this weekend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's fun. I don't do marathons anymore. And I suppose if I found a trail marathon, I would do it. But I'm done with roads, long marathons, pavement, the whole thing. But 30K is about my longest right now, and I love doing half marathons, especially half marathon trail runs.
I do too. I'm doing one. I'm actually doing 15K around Central Park this coming weekend, and then I'm doing my first half marathon of the year will be in the end of January.
Oh, good.
I agree with you. I think that training for and just being able to get up every day and go, I think I'll run a half marathon is kind of a great goal to have. And that is my goal.
Good. That's the way to go. And it's fun to get to that point where you can just say, let's go do a 12-miler, 13-miler. Just go out and run.
We will be talking again soon. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time out and being on GRUFFtalk.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great. Good luck with your marathon training.
Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode of GRUFFtalk, please do 2 things. First, share it with all your friends and family, and subscribe to GRUFFtalk wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, so you never miss a single episode. Until next time, remember this: We can't control getting older, but we can control how we do it. Talk to you soon. Age Better Podcast is a proud member of the Sound Advice Network. Sound Advice, women's voices amplified.